You won't believe what happened during a seemingly ordinary Sunday service that turned into one of the most shocking church controversies in recent memory. A single dress, one pastor's wife, and a live service changed everything in ways no one saw coming. Heads turned, whispers spread, and by the end of the day, people were debating what happened weeks later, both inside the church and across social media. What started as a wardrobe choice exploded into questions about leadership, trust, and the hidden struggles behind the walls of a ministry. It started like any other Sunday service. The choir was singing, the congregation was settling in, and worship began as usual. But then Dr. Carrie Turner, the pastor's wife, walked in wearing a dress that no one expected. At first, people barely noticed. Smiles stayed in place, music played, and everything seemed normal. But almost instantly, the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was subtle. Heads began turning, eyes followed her as she walked down the aisle. Whispers moved from row to row, quiet at first, like a ripple moving through still water. What she wore created a reaction that surprised everyone, including those closest to her. Some felt it was bold, others felt it crossed a line, but the one thing everyone agreed on was that it caught them off guard. This wasn't just any woman walking into a church. This was Dr. Carrie Turner, wife of Pastor Jamal Bryant, a figure who many expected to reflect the values of the church in every moment. Her presence was supposed to reassure, inspire, and model faith, but instead it sparked questions, confusion, and tension. The odd part? There were no written rules broken. Church leadership had long preached freedom, self-expression, and grace, especially regarding women's choices. Yet, as whispers spread, a contradiction became impossible to ignore. Members remembered sermons about modesty and propriety, while others recalled messages of acceptance and grace. In that moment, the both ideals collided, and no one knew which one held more weight. Pastor Jamal Bryant's demeanor reportedly changed as the service continued. His voice felt tighter, faster, more urgent. Some described his energy as controlled, almost as if he was holding back a reaction. Worship went on, but for many the tension was palpable. Attendance that day was higher than usual, which only magnified the effect. More eyes meant more opinions, more scrutiny, and more conversations after the service. By the time the service ended, the energy in the room had shifted dramatically. Conversations in the hallways were sharp, divided, and pointed. Some defended Dr. Turner, arguing she was being unfairly judged. Others felt a boundary had been crossed in what was supposed to be a sacred space. Longtime members began questioning leadership openly. Volunteers argued quietly among themselves. And standing in the center of it all was Dr. Turner herself, calm on the outside, but inside processing the weight of every gaze and whisper. As the service ended and the congregation slowly filed out, the tension didn't disappear. It followed Dr. Carrie Turner into private spaces behind the church walls. For the first time that day, away from public eyes, the weight of the moment hit her. Witnesses later described a scene filled with emotion, frustration, and years of unspoken feelings finally coming to the surface. It wasn't just about the dress. According to insiders, the garment had acted as a trigger, bringing long-standing pressures and tensions into focus. Dr. Turner reportedly felt blindsided not only by the immediate reactions of the congregation, but by the silence of those she trusted most. Leadership allegedly advised her to let it pass and not respond publicly. To some, this seemed like wise counsel. To her, it felt like abandonment. The advice highlighted a recurring issue. The focus was on appearances, while deeper concerns were ignored. Several accounts suggest that in private, Dr. Turner expressed feeling controlled and unheard. The same people scrutinizing her in public had allegedly overlooked issues within the ministry for years. Her frustration was not directed at the congregation, it was directed at a system that prioritized image over honesty. The pressure of maintaining poise while navigating both personal and public expectations became unbearable. In this private aftermath, emotions ran high. Voices reportedly were raised, and difficult truths were voiced that had been suppressed for years. Words of disappointment, fatigue, and longing for autonomy spilled out, revealing cracks in both personal relationships and church leadership dynamics. Staff and volunteers who witnessed these moments described the tension as palpable, almost like the energy of the service had been stored and was now releasing in full force. Here's what makes this part of the story compelling. The dress was merely the catalyst. It exposed a deeper pattern, a culture where appearances were prioritized over genuine conversation, and where leadership often relied on silence to manage conflict. Those inside the church were forced to confront uncomfortable questions about trust, transparency, and the emotional well-being of those in leadership roles. The ripple effects didn't stay behind closed doors for long. Small, vague hints of the confrontation began to surface online. A comment here, a cryptic post there, and suddenly people outside the congregation began piecing together fragments of the story. Social media became the new echo chamber for curiosity and speculation. Posts speculated about marital tension, leadership control, and the supposed rebellion of the pastor's wife. And just like that, what had begun as a private emotional release started transforming into a public narrative, one that would spiral far beyond anyone's expectations. Here's the suspenseful moment to keep viewers hooked. While the congregation argued and insiders quietly processed the event, the seeds of a larger controversy were being sown online. What started as a subtle shift in a Sunday service was about to explode into a story that everyone, from church members to social media users, would debate relentlessly. After the service, what had been a private emotional moment began slipping out into the public eye, piece by piece. At first, it was subtle, a few comments on social media, vague captions hinting at tension, whispers shared between former volunteers and congregation members. But in today's connected world, subtle becomes viral. Within hours, clips and blurry photos of Dr. Carrie Turner walking down the aisle in that dress were circulating online. People who had never set foot in the church were now debating her appearance, her intentions, and even her character. The remarkable part is that none of the posts initially had full context. Most of the internet didn't know about the private discussions, the frustrations, or the long-standing pressures Dr. Turner had been experiencing. Instead, viewers filled in the gaps themselves. Some framed her as defiant, others as a victim of rigid expectations. Comments on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook grew louder by the hour, fueled by curiosity and judgment in equal measure. What intended as a personal moment had now become public entertainment. As the story gained traction, old sermons, videos, and social media posts from the church resurfaced. Messages about grace, submission, and appearances were suddenly re-examined in the light of this incident. Former members and insiders began connecting dots that had previously gone unnoticed. Small moments of tension, minor absences, and even subtle facial expressions during services were now interpreted as signs of a bigger issue. A pattern emerged. The same culture that encouraged public image over private honesty had been shaping experiences for years. Meanwhile, Dr. Turner reportedly struggled with how fast the story was spreading. What had been a personal moment of frustration turned into online speculation she couldn't control. The constant scrutiny created emotional pressure that insiders say made her feel isolated and misunderstood. Even those closest to her were being asked to stay quiet, creating a sense of abandonment. The weight of public judgment collided with private expectations, leaving her in a position where silence no longer felt like a safe choice. The controversy escalated further as social media users began sharing more context, some accurate, some not. Clips of the service were slowed down and replayed, with viewers analyzing her posture, expressions, and movements. Every detail was examined. The dress was no longer just clothing, it had become a symbol. To some, it represented rebellion against church norms. To others, it was proof of hypocrisy and leadership. Either way, the incident was no longer about fashion. It had become a mirror reflecting unresolved tensions within the church and the marriage. What makes this story different is the way small fragments fueled massive